What is going on, YouTube people? Neo Cards and Comics here today for a grading reveal, but this one's going to be a little bit different. My grades from my COMC submission came back. For those that don't know, this is something new that COMC rolled out about probably 6 or 7 weeks ago. You can submit your cards directly to CSG/CGC, varying different service levels, pricing tiers. The nice thing is for bulk submissions, to get bulk pricing, you don't need to hit a minimum. You could just submit one card and send it at the bulk rate. It just takes a little bit longer to come back. So if you're only sending a handful of cards in, even though COMC puts like a couple buck premium on top of the submission price, it ends up being cheaper if you're only sending a few in. But they send them off, they get graded, and then they get sent back and re-added into your COMC inventory. So nice, smooth, seamless. We'll kind of talk about it here in a minute before we get into the grade reveal, but very easy process to do overall. If you forgot or you want to see it, I did a video on it about 6 or 7 weeks ago that showed me purchasing some cards and going through the submission process. Very, very easy. Now, right now, it is only CSG and CGC, but that is not an exclusive deal. So you could potentially see this open up to other grading companies in the future. So there's two use cases for this. One, you could send stuff in for PC to get graded, sent back, and then have it shipped home. Or you could send stuff in to potentially grade and flip on the COMC platform if you so choose to do it that way. I did a little mix match of both. I sent mostly Marvel stuff. I sent one card to CSG, a Manny Ramirez Refractor. And then I bought a bunch of Marvel cards off COMC. I only have one Marvel card in my COMC account already. To me, the angle on Marvel cards specifically is a lot of Marvel cards on the platform come from Upper Deck E-Pack. So they're essentially pack fresh. It's not, the scrap heap that a bunch of people sent in or anything like that. Like Fleer Ultra Avengers just came out. It's not on E-Pack yet. That'll hit E-Pack in probably a month or so. Everyone's going to rip those, and then all the inserts are going to flood COMC. You could potentially swoop in, and if you have a decent eye, which we'll talk about in a minute, look those over, send them off to CGC to get graded, and get them back in hand. And then obviously, going forward, depending on what other grading companies they may add, you'd have some different options there depending on your grader of choice or where you like to send stuff. But overall process was very, very easy. My only critique is, and I've told the fine folks at COMC this already, so this isn't news to them, they don't notify you when your cards are back. So I just happened to log into my COMC account and saw new things in my inventory, and I'm like, where did I get all these slabs at? And then it hit me that they were my CSG and CGC orders coming back. Now, they came back at 2 different times. My CSG order took 4 weeks almost on the nose. That was bulk. That was $15. You can see it right here. Price paid $15. CSG bulk is, I believe it's $12 a card. And then, like I said, COMC hits you with a little fee on top. But I only sent one card, and I was able to send that at the bulk rate. CGC stuff took about 6 weeks. It actually popped up late last week, I believe. I think it was, noticed it when I was at the Philly show, that stuff popped up. Those were sent at $18 a card. So let's run down the grades. You could see them here, but let's pull up the actual images and then we'll kind of talk about it. Like I said, the process to send in was extremely easy. Everything that I sent, other than, well, actually, all of these were cards I purchased on COMC and sent in the grading. It was not stuff that I sent in myself. So first up, the CSG card was a 1999 Bowman's Best Refractor Manny Ramirez. This came back a CSG 8.5. Now, I thought this looked pretty good in scans. I did not pay for elite processing on any of my raw cards that I looked at. You can do that. I think it's like 50 cents or $1. Don't quote me on that. And they'll give you a higher res scan. If you were taking this pretty seriously, that might be a better way to go. But that being said, I'll have to see when I get this. I'm going to have this card sent home. I think it looks pretty good overall, but the trick is it is tough to tell surface on these. So I'll have a better idea once I get this in hand at home. But the corners, at least on here, look pretty decent. I'll be honest, I'm not real sure. Centering doesn't look too bad. It's a little off left to right, but Overall, 8.5. I almost kind of didn't care what this card graded. It's a Ramirez refractor, so the grade's really not that important to me. I just wanted something nice in a Ramirez refractor slabbed up on a CSG slab. So this will come home and roll into my Manny Ramirez PC / 90s Indians PC. So that was that one. That one came back at 8.5. On the Marvel side of stuff, let's look top to bottom here. 2018 Fleer Ultra X-Men. This is a Wolverine Gold parallel. I believe this was an EPAC achievement. I purchased this on COMC a while ago, like during the Marvel boom. This ran me like 80 or 90 bucks. These are pretty rare. They actually do not pop up very often. So this card was something that came in direct from EPAC, and this ended up getting a CSG 9.5, which is their gem mint grade. So this would be equivalent to an SGC 10, a PSA 10, or a Beckett 9.5 for those not familiar with CGC's grading scale. CSG gem mint is a 10 grade, so there's a little bit difference there between the two sister companies. Very happy with this one. I'm not sure if I'm going to keep this one or potentially look to flip it. I do really like this card, so I may end up having this sent home. I've always really liked that image. That's why I picked it up in the first place. And then the gold parallels are pretty rare, so not sure what I'm going to do with that one yet. Next up was a bunch of 93 Skybox holograms. These cards look absolutely fantastic. It's a 3-card set of Magneto, Storm, and Cable. Now, these were not EPAC. They're from 1993. So obviously these were cards people sent in. First up is the Cable. This one came back a CGC 8.5. Once again, card from the 90s. With just glancing at it in the slab, it's tough to tell exactly, a scan of the slab no less, what exactly they ding this for. Potentially nothing's jumping out at me off the top, unless maybe it's top to bottom centering. I noticed down here, you could almost look like you're seeing the bottom or the top of the next card on the sheet, because this rock kind of cuts off right in the middle. I did not notice that when I initially bought the card raw. So I'm guessing that got dinged for centering, but not 100% sure. But that one got a CGC 8.5. We have a Storm here. This one came back a CGC 8, near mint. And these cards do look fantastic in hand. They have a holographic finish to them. That's what you're kind of seeing here a little bit on the scans. Once again, I'm not noticing anything super crazy. Maybe the corners down there. It's tough to tell on the scans without mega zooming in. Next up, Magneto holograph. This was the one that I was the most excited for. I actually purchased 2 of these. This came back a CGC 9. This is the card from the set, in my opinion. This thing looks absolutely amazing. It's kind of a really good image of Magneto, kind of a classic pose, and then looks really good. And then the second one, this one is getting sent home. CGC 9.5. Really nice grade on this, as this insert set is a tougher grade because of the hologram-like material, and it's just from the early 90s. The QC on that stuff was not great. So very pleased to pull a 9.5 out of this one. Glad I snapped up 2 of these and sent them both in. Even the 9 is actually, I'm pretty happy with for a grade on that. The last one, and this one actually made the whole submission. This is from 2022, the Spider-Man Into the SpiderVerse set, a My Story, which was an insert parallel of Spider-Gwen. This is the red variation. These are pretty short printed. These are actually really, really tough pulls, more than people realize. I picked this up for 60 bucks raw. I looked these over pretty close on the COMC website. If you remember, if you go back to the video, you'll see I looked at one and I was like, I don't like this one. I'm going to go with this other one. And that diligence may have paid off. This one came back a CGC 10 pristine. Once again, this was a direct from EPAC card. Nice thing, one of the things that I really like on this is that they do label it as a short print, which I thought was really cool. So it's the My Story Red SP. The reason why this card is kind of a big deal is that short print. So on the My Stories, the Gwen is, it's a 20 card checklist. 5 of them are short printed. The Peter B. Parker, Miles Morales, the Gwen, the Spider-Man Noir, and the Spider-Ham are short printed on the base checklist. Those are 1 in 38 packs for just the base. The red My Story on the base are 101 out of 133 packs. This is a short print. The red short print My Stories are 1 in 1,200 packs. So these things are not easy to find. I was thrilled that this got a pristine 10. This one was 100% getting sent home. These cards look really good in hand. I pulled, not a short print version, but I pulled a My Story out of the box that I opened a while back. They look really, really nice in hand. I'm excited to get this one back. This one will 100% be getting shipped home. And is a really, really nice grade in that card. Those are kind of condition sensitive. They're almost like a rainbow foil on the front. Great looking cards. It'll look fantastic in that CGC slab for sure. And that'll go straight into the Gwen PC. So overall, pretty happy, even though the grades aren't exactly the highest. The Ramirez, once again, I'm kind of indifferent on the grade. Getting the Gwen in a CGC 10 pristine and getting the Magneto in a 9.5 and to a lesser extent, the Magneto in the 9, and then getting the short print Wolverine in a 9.5. Out of the 7 cards I sent in, 3 I am extremely happy with. The gold 9.5, the Magneto 9.5, and the Gwen 10. And then I'm like decently happy with the 9. So more than half the submission I am very pleased with. Now, is this going to be a great money-making venture for me or anything like that? No, probably not. Though I could maybe potentially flip the Wolverine. If I wanted to sell the Gwen, I could probably actually do pretty well on that. I'm not looking to move it. That was not the purpose of buying that card, but I probably did add a lot of value to that Gwen in a pristine 10. CGC actually sells pretty well on Marvel, and pristine 10s sell even better. That's actually a pretty big grade on that card. So overall, I'm pretty happy. The process was pretty easy to use. Like I said, my only real critique is not getting notified when the cards were loaded back up again. I assume that would be a pretty easy fix, but I don't work there, so I don't want to speak for those guys over there and girls how easy or hard that is to get situated, but I feel like that's something they could potentially do. The big things for me moving forward in regards to them and the grading would be, once again, to continue to look for, from a flipping perspective, if that's what your game here is, just because of the CSG prices on the secondary market right now, I think from a flip perspective, the angle is Marvel stuff. You know, look at that E-Pack stuff, find the short printed stuff, find the stuff that looks cool that moves, and potentially send that directly in the CGC. Or if you're ripping a bunch of stuff on Upper Deck E-Pack and you're having it transferred over to COMC for physical inventory, sending it in yourself to get graded if you're not pursuing and buying singles. I think that's the angle from a flip perspective, just because CGC does move fairly decently in Marvel stuff overall. I've had pretty good success with that. And then I think the other interesting angle spinning this thing forward is if they ever add other grading companies to the mix. If PSA comes online, if SGC comes online, if they bring Beckett back, those sorts of things from an actual sports card side of things, grading to flip, that opens up a lot more avenues, especially depending on the pricing and the turnaround with the various different companies, and even with Marvel as well. You know, sending in the Marvel, the PSA always sells extremely well. Don't get me wrong. PSA still outsells CGC, but you could do pretty decently on CGC. It's probably the second best, other than maybe Beckett on high end in regards to Marvel sales, at least from what, in my experience, from what I've had. That's all I have for you boys and girls today. If you've tried this out, let me know in the comments down below. How did it go for you? What was your turnaround times like? How did your grades come back? Were they what you expected? Like I said, if you had a bigger boy card you were looking to send in, it's probably worth it to send in for Elite to get the better scans in and look it over first. But I think the E-Pack stuff, I think you can eyeball that stuff well enough if you know the set and how the QC is out of the rip. So that does it for this one. We will catch you on the next one. Peace.